Yoki is just another unlucky guy who dies in a boring traffic accident and wakes up in a fantasy world as a demon. But instead of becoming a cool overlord, he ends up as a castle employee with zero career goals. Then, a hero's party storms in, and this so-called scary general forgets his job the second he sees the priestess Cecilia. One look at a cute girl, and the mighty demon turns into a full-time simp. It all begins in an alternate world that is threatened by the Demon King and his generals. A small group known as the Heroes Party decides to challenge that darkness, believing they are the only ones able to end the threat. Yuga, the leader, looks at his companions and asks one last time if they are truly prepared, because once they step forward, there will be no path back. Each of them answers without hesitation that they are ready to risk their lives. The mage assures Yuga that she has studied every general who serves the Demon King, and that victory is possible if they follow the plan she has created. Encouraged by her confidence, the party approaches the castle and prepares for what they believe will be the final battle. The moment they cross the main doors, their hope is shaken, because the first enemy waiting for them is Yoki, captain of the demon generals. He says he has expected their arrival and warns that anyone who wishes to touch the Demon King must first defeat him. The mage refuses to listen to more of his words and hurls a fireball at his face, but Yoki brushes it aside as though it is nothing. He mocks their strength, saying even the simplest defensive spell can block their magic. The tank rushes forward and swings his blade, yet Yoki avoids every strike with ease before answering with a single kick that sends the warrior flying across the hall. Cecilia, the party's priestess, quickly casts reinforcement magic on Yuga so he can unleash the power of Excalibur, the legendary sword. Yuga pours all his strength into the attack, but Yoki does not even step aside. He releases his own dark technique, and the two powers collide until the hero's light is swallowed by shadow. A wave of energy crashes over the party and leaves them unconscious on the stone floor. While Yoki inspects the fallen heroes to decide their fate, his gaze lingers on Cecilia, and he realizes she matches his idea of beauty. His thoughts are interrupted when his generals arrive and ask whether they should end the intruders for good. Duke the Dullahan, the headless knight, urges him to finish the job, and Happiness the harpy wonders why he keeps staring at the priestess. Yoki avoids the question and says killing them would be pointless. Instead, he orders the generals to carry the heroes outside the castle and leave them near a nearby village. The generals obey, though Happiness warns that showing mercy may anger the Demon King. Yoki pretends not to worry, yet before Cecilia is taken away, he silently bids her farewell. A month passes, and the heroes return again and again to attack the castle, but each attempt ends the same way, with Yoki defeating them and throwing them out alive. One day, the Demon King summons him to the throne room, where the minister mocks Yoki for failing to kill such weak opponents. Laughter spreads through the court, while Yoki keeps his head lowered and answers nothing. The Demon King then declares that if the heroes leave the castle alive one more time, the task will be handed to Yoki's subordinates instead. The threat troubles Yoki deeply because he knows his juniors cannot survive a battle with the heroes. He promises the Demon King that the next time the party enters the castle, they will not live to see another dawn. Later, alone in his quarters, he lies on his bed and wrestles with the decision he must make. He understands that the heroes possess enough power to defeat even the Demon King himself, and only his overwhelming abilities have kept them from victory. Still, he cannot allow them to face his subordinates, and he realizes the next encounter must end differently from all the others. A couple of weeks pass before the heroes' party enters the castle once again, and this time, Yoki decides the battle must end for good. He tells Yuga that the party should learn from its mistakes instead of returning every few weeks only to be defeated again. Yuga refuses to listen and rushes forward with Raven, the red-haired tank, and together they attempt to trap Yoki with an attack from two sides. Yoki moves faster than they expect, blocks both strikes, and answers with a purple blast of magic that forces them back. Before they can steady themselves, he fires a second blast that slams them into the wall. Cecilia runs to heal Yuga and Raven, while Mikana stays behind to hold Yoki in place and buy time. Mikana releases a spell that Yoki blocks, but she follows it with a curved fire attack that explodes a moment later and catches him off guard. The explosion has little effect because his power is far beyond that of a normal general, and Mikana wonders how anyone can be this strong. Even so, her effort allows Cecilia's enough time to restore the two warriors so they can stand again. Yoki laughs and says nothing will change no matter how many times they challenge him. Yuga grips Excalibur, gathers all his energy into the blade, and charges for a final strike. But when the smoke clears, Yoki remains untouched and asks if they finally understand they cannot defeat him. Yuga steps back, yet refuses to give up, saying they must defeat the Demon King at any cost. To everyone's surprise, Yoki offers to let them pass to the throne room if they leave Cecilia behind. Yuga rejects the idea at once, but Makana argues that the life of one priestess cannot outweigh the lives of millions. Cecilia herself speaks and tells her companions to go on without her, and Yuga promises he will return for her as soon as the Demon King is defeated. The party moves through the gate, leaving Cecilia alone with Yoki. In the silent hall, Yoki feels awkward and asks how she is, but Cecilia remains tense and declares she will fight even if she has no chance of winning. She fires a spell that Yoki blocks, and he quickly tells her to calm down because he has no intention of harming her. Confused, she demands to know why he kept her behind. Yoki gathers his courage and admits he has liked her since the first day he saw her and wishes to go on a date with her. Cecilia is shocked and can only apologize, and Yoki understands the rejection. He sinks to the ground, saying there is no reason for him to live, while Cecilia wonders if this is another trick. She reminds him that demons are supposed to be heartless, yet Yoki answers that he is not truly a demon. He explains that he was once a human in another world and was reincarnated here as a demon under the Demon King's rule. The party could not defeat him because his power is far beyond anyone else, and he is only allowed to leave the castle to attack human villages, something he hates because he still feels human inside. Cecilia asks why he does not simply kill the Demon King and live freely, and Yoki replies that if he did, the demons would crown him as the next ruler, a fate he does not want. Cecilia then tells him to abandon the demon life and return to the human world to live normally, and her words awaken hope in his heart, so he decides to accept her suggestion. On that same day, the heroes' party defeats the Demon King, and the royal capital holds a grand celebration where Yuga and his companions are honored by the king. Yoki watches from outside the city, breaks off his horns to look more human, buys ordinary clothes, and heads to the Adventurers Guild to begin a new life. The guild hall is almost empty except for a tired receptionist named Seek, who complains about working during the holiday. Yoki asks to register as an adventurer, and Seek sighs but prepares the documents, hands him an adventurer card, and warns him not to lose it because replacing it is troublesome. Weeks pass as Yoki completes quest after quest and rises from F rank to D rank faster than anyone in memory, becoming the main topic of the guild. Seek questions how a newcomer can advance so quickly, but Yoki only smiles and submits more requests. One day, Cecilia appears suddenly and asks to speak with him alone. She brings him to her home and urges him to leave the guild, explaining that, with the Demon King gone, nations are struggling for power and trying to recruit strong adventurers for their own armies. She fears that if Yoki continues to stand out, some country will attempt to control him, and his strength would be as dangerous as a living weapon. Yoki promises to act more quietly from now on. At that moment, Celia, Cecilia's mother, calls them inside and tells Yoki that many marriage proposals have arrived for her daughter, including one from Yuga, the hero. Yoki grows angry and complains loudly until Cecilia tells him to be quiet and says she has already rejected every offer. Hearing this, Yoki faces Celia and declares that although Cecilia refused him once, he will work hard as an adventurer, build a proper life, and ask for her hand again when he is worthy. Celia seems satisfied and leaves them alone. Yoki then says goodbye to Cecilia and returns to his small home, waiting for the day he can stand before her once more and ask for a different answer. A couple of days pass, and Yoki accepts a new quest to defeat a chimera that has been attacking villagers without reason. Seek tells him the job may take a week or even longer. Yet when Yoki reaches the deep jungle and meets the monster, he realizes the task is simpler than expected. The creature, half chicken and half snake, lunges at him again and again, but Yoki moves far faster and lets it exhaust itself before ending the fight with a thunderbolt spell. He gathers the feathers as proof of success and thinks that since the battle took less than half a day, he may be able to rise through the ranks even quicker. Before he can leave the forest, he senses danger, and a knight bursts from the bushes aiming a blade at his throat. Yoki dodges with ease, only to notice a harpy swooping from above to claw at his eyes. He raises a magical barrier and throws the attacker back, yet another figure rushes toward him, a small pixie whose face he recognizes at once as Sheik, one of his former subordinates. Yoki calls his name, saying it is truly him despite his new appearance, and Sheik halts in surprise. A moment later, Duke the Dullahan and Happiness the Harpy reveal themselves from hiding, stunned to see their captain alive when they believed he had perished with the Demon King. Yoki tells them he is glad they are safe, but Duke angrily asks why he vanished after the Empire fell, explaining that they searched everywhere and feared the worst. Duke also notices that Yoki no longer has horns or wings and looks human, and he demands to know what happened. Yoki orders him to calm down and explains briefly that he confessed his feelings to Cecilia from the hero's party, was rejected, and chose to live as a human adventurer. The three are baffled that the former captain of the demon generals would adopt such a life. Yoki says he has chosen this path of his own will and that they are free to do whatever they wish in the peaceful world that has begun. Shaik, Happiness, and Duke immediately answer that they want to stay with him and live as humans too, and they are curious to meet the woman who captured his heart. Yoki warns them that demons have no place among humans, but the three insist that if their captain can change his appearance and start anew, then they can do the same. Hearing their decision, Yoki agrees to let them stay with him and brings them to meet Cecilia, but she is horrified when she learns that Yoki tore off Happiness's wings to make her appear human. Cecilia scolds him for acting without thinking, saying that even if he wanted the harpy to blend in, ripping away her wings must have caused terrible pain. Happiness clings to Cecilia and murmurs that she is kind, and Duke and Shaik watch with admiration, even clapping for her gentle heart. After the commotion settles, they all go inside the mansion for tea, and Cecilia asks Duke if it is true that they once served under Yoki. Duke explains calmly that he is a Dullahan, Happiness is a harpy, and Shaik is a pixie, and that all of them are humanoid beings rather than pure demons. Yoki is surprised to hear Duke speaking so openly, because in the past, he was almost silent. Duke admits that his quiet nature was because of Yoki himself, recalling how, when Yoki first arrived as their captain, he hated him. Yoki had been a withdrawn figure who avoided conversation, ignored orders from his superior Misaki, and showed no respect for the demon hierarchy. Duke once decided to discipline the new captain by force, yet Yoki defeated him with overwhelming strength, and that defeat planted respect in Duke's heart. Cecilia remarks that the three now seem to care deeply for their captain, and Duke agrees that their bond grew over time. While they talk, Yoki notices that Happiness and Shiki have gone silent and begins to search for them, worrying about the danger if anyone discovers that Cecilia is sheltering demons. They soon find Sheik asleep in the lap of Celia, who says the little pixie ran around the garden until he tired himself out. Yoki apologizes and explains that Shike is his friend and does not understand human manners, but Celia only smiles and answers that she loves children and does not mind at all. Yoki then asks about Happiness, and Celia says that headmaid Sophia took the girl inside the mansion. Everyone rushes back, afraid the harpy might panic, but they discover her standing quietly in a maid uniform that Sophia has given her. Sophia proudly introduces the newcomer as a new maid named Happiness, yet Cecilia quickly explains that she is the companion of Yoki. Sophia apologizes for the confusion, saying she expected another recruit that day. Yoki tells Happiness to change back, but she insists that she wants to work and asks Sophia if she may stay as a servant. Sophia smiles warmly and replies that she will show her the servants' quarters and teach her everything she needs to know. In the evening, Yoki prepares to leave with Duke and Shaik, while Happiness remains behind in the mansion. Shaik rubs his sleepy eyes and mutters that the harpy is lucky to stay in such a grand place. Cecilia tells them they may visit any time, and Celia, her mother, quietly takes Yoki aside to speak with him. She explains that Cecilia has been burdened with work and has not rested properly, so she plans to give her a holiday tomorrow and asks Yoki to take her out on a date. The next morning, Yoki waits eagerly at the city square, and soon Cecilia arrives in a beautiful wagon pulled by two griffins. She steps down, dressed like an ordinary girl with thick glasses, yet her simple appearance only makes her more charming in Yoki's eyes. He takes her hand and they wander through the lively streets. Cecilia shows delight in every small thing she sees, stopping at a cake shop and asking if they can return later for tea. They continue through the town, playing with cats and trying on dresses, and Yoki plans to buy her a small gift to remember the day. Their peaceful outing is interrupted when Yuga and Mikana appear nearby, also dressed in civilian clothes. Yuga rushes to Cecilia and begins speaking to her as if Yoki is not even there, inviting her to join them. Cecilia politely answers that she is already spending the day with a friend, and only then does Yuga notice Yoki. He casually says Yoki may come along if he wishes and leads Cecilia into a gift shop, leaving Mikana and Yoki outside. Mikana mutters that she hopes Cecilia falls for a commoner like him, and Yoki first feels encouraged until he realizes the words were meant as an insult towards Cecilia. He understands that Mikana's nature is far from kind. Inside the shop, Yuga continues to talk boldly to Cecilia, despite her earlier refusal of his marriage proposal, and Yoki decides he will not step aside. He enters and chooses a delicate necklace, asking Cecilia if she likes it, and she blushes and says it is beautiful. Yuga suddenly pushes forward holding an expensive emerald tiara and removes Cecilia's hat to place it on her head. Her glasses drop to the floor, and the crowd instantly recognizes her as the famous priestess. Along with Yuga and Mikena, people swarm around them, and Yoki is left alone, unable to reach her. While searching through the chaos, he meets Raven, who is surrounded by excited girls. Yoki distracts them and pulls Raven into a quiet alley to free him. He notices Raven's soft, almost girlish voice and feels surprised. Yet Raven stops him and shyly asks if they can be friends because others often mock the way he speaks. Yoki agrees before hurrying off again to find Cecilia. He finally spots her still in disguise, helping a small boy who lost his mother in the crowd, and Yoki joins the search despite suggesting she return home. Cecilia refuses to leave the child, and they continue looking together. The following morning, Yoki visits the mansion, and Celia greets him with worry, saying Cecilia collapsed from exhaustion after the previous day. Yoki apologizes for failing to protect her, but Celia assures him the blame lies with Yuga, who even forced his way into the house, claiming he would care for Cecilia until headmaid Sophia threw him out. Celia allows Yoki to see her daughter, and he finds Cecilia's resting in bed. They speak about the madness of the festival, and Cecilia asks him to take her out again on her next free day, which fills Yoki with joy. His excitement makes her laugh until she coughs, and Sophia angrily drives him from the room. On his way home, Yoki meets Raven again, who seeks advice about confessing to a kind girl he loves but feels insecure because of his voice. Yoki encourages him to be brave and speak from the heart, and Raven thanks him before walking toward Cecilia's house, making Yoki realize in horror that the girl Raven loves is Cecilia herself. Yoki realizes he may have just gained another rival in love, and the thought sends him into a spiral. He tries to believe Cecilia would reject Raven, yet he remembers they are teammates in the hero's party and begins to wonder if something already exists between them. He starts thinking about crazy scenarios, which makes him fear that Raven could take Cecilia away at any moment. Raven returns not long after, looking clearly dejected, and Yoki quickly realizes that the confession has not gone well. Raven apologizes for wasting all the moral support Yoki had given him and leaves. However, Yoki still cannot stop worrying about Cecilia, so he heads back to the mansion and calls for headmaid Sophia, who looks suspicious that he is already back. Yoki pretends he is only worried about Cecilia, yet Sophia tells him to leave. He asks Sophia what Raven said to her. She explains that Raven asked to meet happiness. That makes everything click for Yoki, because he realizes Raven is interested in happiness, and he starts wondering why happiness rejected him so firmly. Curious, he goes to see her and tells her that Raven is his friend, which surprises her. She tells him there is no way she can be with Raven. Yoki thinks she hates the man, but she shakes her head and walks away without giving him any explanation. Later that evening, Yoki asks Duke and Seek what they think about Raven, and both of them question why he would let someone like a former member of the hero's party get close to happiness. Yoki points out that he is not the one who arranged it. Duke then explains that happiness hesitates for personal reasons. Harpies are a beautiful race, and in the past, humans hunted them for their bodies and feathers. Duke saved happiness from some of those humans, which is why she joined the Demon Lord's army, yet he believes that experience left her unwilling to get involved with humans again. Seek argues that she does not hate humans since she chose to work in Cecilia's mansion as a maid, and Yoki agrees, while adding that Raven is also a decent person, so there is no clear reason for her to be wary of him. The next day, Yoki goes to the Adventurers Guild and notices that Kramen is nowhere to be seen. There, a receptionist asks him if he is looking for the Vice Guildmaster. Yoki asks who she means, and she explains that Kramen is the Vice Guildmaster, while his lazy reputation does not match his position at all, which makes Yoki stare at her in disbelief. When Yoki asks why Kramen is absent, she hesitates, then quietly admits he is in the hospital. Yoki leaves at once to check on him. Later, Yoki visits Kramen, who thanks him for coming. Yoki notices the bandages covering him from head to toe and asks how he ended up so badly injured. Kramen explains that his wife got angry with him, but the answer only confuses Yoki further until Kramen admits it was their wedding anniversary. He could not decide on a gift for her, which made him waste so much time at the shop that night fell before he returned home, and when he finally arrived, his wife believed he had forgotten her gift and beat him in a fit of anger. Yoki feels stunned and asks how his wife has the strength to twist his bones so badly. Kramen explains that she was once an A-ranked adventurer, and he was as well. Before marrying, they both formed a party known as the Invincible Couple. Yoki offers to heal Kramen with magic, but Kramen refuses. saying he prefers to recover under his wife's care. His overly romantic tone makes Yoki uneasy, and soon his wife enters the room. Yoki gets surprised to see its headmaid, Sophia. Kramen beams when he sees her and calls her honey, but Sophia kicks him for it before tending to his wounds. Then she steps outside with Yoki and thanks him for visiting her husband. Yoki tells her it is no trouble and asks how Cecilia is doing. Sophia tells him that Cecilia is fine but currently out on business. Yoki feels disappointed, but then changes the subject and asks Sophia whether girls truly care so much about gifts, which makes Sophia realize that Kramen must have told Yoki all about it. Yoki explains that he only wants honest advice. She tells him that a girl appreciates any gift as long as they are well thought out, and Yoki thanks her before heading off. As he walks back, Yoki feels envious of their married life and starts thinking about whether Cecilia would make a quiet housewife or an outgoing businesswoman, but then quickly pulls himself out of that fantasy before entering Raven's room. There he finds Raven collapsed on the bed like a lifeless statue and unresponsive. Yoki finally says happiness, and Raven immediately gets out of his trauma. Raven asks how Yoki knows her. Yoki explains that they have been friends for a long time, then asks how things went when Raven confessed his feelings to Happiness. Raven tells him his story. He says that he first met Happiness while patrolling the city, and at that time she was being harassed by a group of goons in an alley, so he stepped in to protect her out of his sense of duty as a knight, which made the men back off and leave her alone. Happiness thanked him for helping her, and he told her not to worry about it, then realized too late that he let his gentle voice slip out in the heat of the moment. But what surprised him was when she complimented his voice instead of mocking him. Raven told her that his voice did not match his appearance at all. Yet Happiness insisted it suited him, saying he was lucky to have it, and that moment gave him the confidence to think she might like him, which is why he later visited her. Yoki listens and says he knows Cecilia as well, then recounts his whole story with her, leading Raven to respect him for leaving his homeland to stay by the side of the woman he loves. Raven realizes how hard Yoki has worked to become worthy of Cecilia, while he has done nothing for the girl he likes. Still, Yoki tells him it is not his fault since Happiness struggles with matters of the heart, and he explains how her past trauma likely makes her reject him. Raven realizes he rushed his confession to someone like her, and now he has no hope. Yet Yoki tells him he still has a chance, then drags him to the market to buy a gift for Happiness. They visit a couple's gift shop, and Raven grows uneasy and worries that people might mistake him and Yoki for a couple. Yoki brushes it off and buys a necklace for Cecilia. Then he notices Raven hesitating over a gift for Happiness and suggests that Raven choose a small trinket that suits Happiness. Raven doubts she will like it at all, but Yoki tells her she will and adds that the trinket matches her style, which finally convinces Raven to buy it. Just after Raven finishes paying, Mikana notices them and walks over, then starts teasing both lonely boys for coming to the market without a girl. Yoki proudly declares that they are there to buy gifts for the girls they like, and before Raven can stop him, Yoki lets the secret slip to Mikana. She immediately turns on Raven with questions about who he likes, which makes him turn away from her, leaving Mikana to realize she is making him uncomfortable. But she needs gossip right now, so she drags them along to question them about their crushes. They sit to eat, and although she keeps asking questions, both boys ignore her. Knowing that Yoki will react, she brings up Cecilia. Yoki freezes mid-bite, prompting Mikana to ask how things are going with her. He admits that nothing has truly changed. Cecilia has given him a chance, but she is getting marriage proposals one after another. Mikana nods and mentions that even Yuga jumped in to propose to Cecilia. Yoki tells her that Cecilia has already rejected Yuga. Mikana explains that Yuga used to bother both girls. He acted like a shameless flirt, letting his fangirls cling to him, which delayed their party on ordinary days and left Cecilia furious. Because of that behavior, Cecilia formed a completely negative impression of him. Mikana warns Yoki to be careful around Cecilia, or he might end up getting blacklisted as well, which makes Yoki agree. Mikana then turns to Raven and starts prying into his love life. Yoki cuts her off and says he will not let a sly fox like her interfere in his friend's sincere feelings, which offends Mikana as she insists she only wants to help, then admits that she also wants love advice for herself. Raven feels surprised by her honesty, and Mikana quickly adds that it is probably a bad idea to seek advice from two hopeless idiots like them. Yet Raven says Yoki is a good person to ask about these things, prompting Mikana to trust him despite her doubts. Mikana explains that she worries about Yuga because he has started to hate her after a certain incident. Before saying anything more, she asks Yoki to keep the matter a secret, which he agrees to do. Mikana then recounts that in the past, their party kept getting defeated inside the Demon Lord's castle. Yoki acts as if he is hearing this for the first time. She admits that the party never even reached the Demon Lord himself because they kept getting crushed by one of his soldiers. Each time the demon defeated them, he politely returned them to a nearby human village. Every time they woke up, the heroes lied to the villagers, saying they had left the castle early to prepare and stay safe. The villagers believed them and continued to provide food and supplies, even as those supplies slowly dwindled, unable to support the party after every defeat. But soon it became unbearable to keep lying and coming back injured again and again. Then, one day, the demon offered to let them advance on the condition that they leave Cecilia behind. At that time, Mikana convinced the party to accept the offer because she wanted to complete the mission and protect others. Ever since then, Yuga started to resent her for agreeing to abandon their teammate, and although he never spoke of it directly, Mikana knew he held a grudge against her and asked Yoki whether he could ever forgive a friend who left someone important behind. Raven steps in and tells her she is not the only one at fault, which surprises Mikana. He admits he shares the blame because he cannot bring himself to speak up at the time. Yoki reflects that he cannot place all the blame on Mikana since he is the one who first asked the party to leave Cecilia behind. Yoki then asks whether Mikana has apologized to Cecilia. Mikana admits she has not, because she believes it would be too uncomfortable to bring it up now. Yoki asks whether she truly wants to leave things awkward forever, and that question makes her realize her mistake. Yoki urges her to talk to her friends for the sake of their friendship, and Mikana agrees, thanking him for the advice. After Mikana leaves, Raven gathers the courage to speak with Happiness, and he goes to Cecilia's mansion with Yoki, where Duke stops them at the entrance and demands to know who Raven is. He is clearly displeased that Raven has come back after Happiness already rejected him. Duke keeps pressing Raven when Raven stays silent, which makes Duke assume that he is being ignored on purpose and calls Raven a coward. Raven finally admits he has no plan for what to say to Happiness. Duke is surprised and asks why he won't act like a proper gentleman. Raven explains that he doesn't want to pretend. After a moment, Duke finally allows him to go and speak with Happiness. Once Raven walks away, Duke tells Yoki that he was only testing Raven's sincerity. Meanwhile, Raven apologizes to Happiness for catching her off guard the other day. He then offers her the gift he bought and asks whether they can be friends. Happiness hesitates for a moment, but then accepts the gift and agrees to become friends. Raven leaves with quiet hope that this small step will let him grow closer to her. A few days go by, and Yoki falls into a quiet depression. It's been over a week since he last saw Cecilia, and the absence has left him exhausted and unmotivated. She begs to visit Cecilia's mansion, to play in the garden with Happiness, but Yoki turns him down. Yoki reflects on how relentlessly busy the hero's party truly is. Cecilia is rarely home, as she travels from city to city to heal those beyond the help of any other healer. Raven, as captain of the guards, oversees recruits and keeps the knights in order. Mikana serves as the palace mage and resolves matters for the royal court. Yuga acts as the kingdom's diplomatic representative, while also handling high-level monsters that ordinary adventurers can't manage. Compared to them, Yoki feels aimless and useless, and questioning whether there's anything he could do to lighten their load. While he is busy overthinking, Sheik jumps onto his chest and complains about how he would have gone with Duke. But Raven scouted Duke for the knights and offered him a position, which Duke took. Happiness knocks on the door and enters the room. Sheik immediately gets excited. Happiness tells Yoki that Cecilia sent her a message. She is free in the afternoon and would love to meet him. Yoki is overjoyed and jumps up, thinking about how he can finally give her the necklace he bought from the gift shop. Determined not to waste the day, Yoki steps outside for some sunlight. Just then, an old woman stops Yoki and insists he should have his fortune read, warning that his luck is terrible today and disaster awaits him. Yoki brushes her off, confidently declaring that he's about to meet the girl of his dreams and nothing could go wrong. On the way, he decides to buy cupcakes for Cecilia, but at the bakery, he's surprised to find a heavily muscled man in a pink apron selling them. Yoki asks him about the usual girl at the counter. The man explains he's her brother and that she's busy today. Yoki buys some cupcakes and asks him to pack them, but the overenthusiastic brother shoves the bag into his chest so hard he wonders if he cracked a rib. Continuing, Yoki checks the bag and finds that half the cupcakes have been crushed. He tries one anyway and finds it delicious despite the damage. Distracted by this, he bumps into a large man who turns angrily, but ultimately lets it slide. More cautious now, Yoki still nearly steps in a pile of dog waste and begins to suspect the fortune teller might have been right about his bad luck. Soon after, a careless brat crashes into him and falls. Yoki catches him in time, But the meat skewer the child was holding drops to the ground, and he starts crying. Yoki consoles him and buys him 2 new skewers from a nearby stand. The boy thanks him and runs off. Almost immediately afterward, a man collides with Yoki and steals his purse. Realizing he's been pickpocketed, Yoki gives chase and easily catches up to the thief. He drop-kicks him in the back of the head, slamming him into a wall and knocking him unconscious, then retrieves his wallet. But just as he's about to leave, a voice behind him declares that he isn't letting a robber escape. Yoki turns to see the hero Yuga with his sword drawn, ordering him to drop the purse and surrender. Yoki tries to explain that he was the victim, but Yuga refuses to listen and attacks. Yoki dodges the first strike and backsteps the following swings, but in the process, Yuga slices the coin purse in half. Deciding it's best to flee without the coins, Yoki attempts to escape, only to find his path blocked by a group of royal guards. Yoki is quickly overpowered, arrested, and thrown into a dark, grimy dungeon cell. With a frustrated sigh, he realizes the old woman's warning about his cursed day was right. O jokingly wonders if Yoki beat up an innocent person out of frustration over Cecilia not giving him attention. Yoki denies everything, insisting he was the one being robbed and that the idiot hero used brute force on him without even hearing him out. Duke reassures him that Raven has taken over the case and is currently verifying the facts. Relieved, Yoki watches as an elven guard named Irene approaches Duke to remind him that they should return to training. Duke asks her for the key, explaining that Yoki has been cleared. Irene hands it over at once, frees Yoki, and informs him that Yuga would like to apologize for the misunderstanding. True to her word, Yuga treats Yoki to an extravagant feast, and joined by Raven. Yuga personally apologizes and repeatedly asks for forgiveness, urging Yoki to eat as much as he likes. The 3 of them sit down and thoroughly devour the meal, after which Raven even writes a note, prompting Yuga to apologize once more. During the meal, Yuga admits he didn't realize Yoki was friends with Raven, and says this is the first time he has ever seen Raven lose his temper. He then recalls meeting Yoki earlier in town with Makana, and suddenly asks about Yoki's relationship with Cecilia. Caught off guard, Yoki replies that they are just friends. To his shock, Yuga eagerly asks him for advice on improving his relationship with Cecilia, unaware that he is seeking advice from his romantic rival. Overwhelmed, Yoki deflects by saying he only met Cecilia a couple of weeks ago and suggests asking someone closer to her. Yuga turns to Raven, but Raven writes that he refuses to answer since he doesn't know either. Yuga then gloomily admits he can't ask Makana because she hates Cecilia, a claim that surprises both Raven and Yoki, especially after their recent conversation with her. Yoki presses Yuga to explain his claim that Makana hates Cecilia. Unaware that Yoki is actually the demon general from that battle, Yuga recounts a past fight against a demon general, where the enemy set a condition. They could proceed only if they left Cecilia behind. According to Yuga, Makana immediately agreed. Yoki objects, saying that's not how it happened, but when Yuga challenges him, asking if he was there, Yoki quickly covers by saying he heard a different version from Makana herself. Yuga insists that Makana could only have agreed if she hated Cecilia. Yoki counters that, regardless of what Makana said, Yuga was the party leader and ultimately made the decision to leave Cecilia behind. Though Yuga realizes there's truth in that, he struggles to accept it, claiming he would never willingly abandon Cecilia. Raven silently places a hand on his shoulder and shakes his head. Speaking what Raven cannot, Yoki tells Yuga that, as the hero, he must stop shifting blame for his own choices. The words hit hard, and Yuga breaks down, finally recognizing how unfairly he treated Makana, despite her lifelong loyalty and support. Determined to apologize, Yuga insists on going to Makana immediately and drags both Raven and Yoki along, too afraid to face her alone. He barges into her house without knocking and finds her in the middle of getting dressed. Ignoring her furious scream, he blurts out an apology for blaming her for leaving Cecilia behind. Enraged, Makana grabs her staff and vents her pent-up frustration by beating him soundly. Deciding this is no longer his problem, Yoki leaves Raven to handle it and heads towards Cecilia's mansion. On the way, Sam stops him again, this time with his sister, the usual bakery girl. She apologizes for the earlier mishap and gives Yoki a fresh, properly packed box of cupcakes. Grateful, he hurries on and continues to the mansion. He finds Cecilia seated and reading. She greets him warmly as he presents both the cupcakes and the skewers. Thanking him, she offers to prepare tea, but the moment is interrupted when Yuga storms in, loudly declaring he has realized his mistake. Makana immediately punches him and tells him to be quiet. Raven arrives as well. Makana steps forward to sincerely apologize to Cecilia for agreeing to leave her behind, admitting that, as teammates, they should never have done so. Cecilia smiles and reassures her. She explains that millions of lives were at stake, and defeating the Demon King was always their priority. She reminds Makana that after the Demon King was defeated, despite being utterly exhausted and out of mana, Makana ran straight back to check on her and collapsed from relief the moment she saw she was safe. So, the misunderstandings are resolved and peace returns. Later, as the sun sets, Yoki and Cecilia take a quiet evening walk. Yoki finally gives her the necklace he bought, and she accepts it gracefully, thanking him for everything he has done for her. Days later, Yoki travels in a carriage with Shaik and Cecilia. Shaik is excited, as it is his first time riding in a carriage. Yoki, however, is annoyed, since he had hoped to be alone with Cecilia. Cecilia thanks both of them for offering to help with her mission. Suddenly, she sneezes. Yoki immediately grows concerned. Shaik then gives her a special potion, which quickly relieves her symptoms, and not long after, they arrive at a small village. As they enter, Cecilia explains that the villagers were attacked by bandits a few days earlier, and reassures the village head that there is nothing to worry about, since both Yoki and Shaik can assist with healing. They begin treating the injured, and after several minutes, the villagers recover, prompting the village head to praise Cecilia and tell Yoki how amazing she is. Yoki agrees, adding that they were fortunate to survive the attack, which leads the village head to reveal that a mysterious person had appeared and driven the bandits away. While listening, Yoki notices that Cecilia looks drained and tells her to rest, but she insists that she is fine. Ignoring her, Yoki uses magic to knock her out and asks for a bed. Sometime later, Cecilia wakes up and becomes angry at him, while Yoki responds with frustration, saying she does not know when to stop. Although Cecilia admits she has been overworking herself, she tells him not to do that again, and after Yoki apologizes, he reassures her that there is nothing to worry about, since everyone has already been healed. At that moment, the village head enters again, and tells them about a young girl living on the outskirts of the village. Yoki asks if she was attacked by the bandits, but the village head explains that she has always been sick and asks them to check on her, so they head to her house. When they arrive, they explain that the village head sent them, and Shaik gives the girl a special potion that makes her feel better. The girl, Teal, says this must be because of her guardian deity, which makes them curious enough to ask about it. Teal explains that the deity protected her during the bandit attack by making her too sleepy to go into the village that day, and although they doubt her at first, she continues by saying the deity also used dark lightning to save her from wolves. Moments later, they discover that the deity is actually a gargoyle, and as Teal continues praising it, Yoki recognizes it as one of the gargoyles from the Demon Lord's castle. Suddenly, the gargoyle attacks, but Yoki quickly evades, while Shike knocks it back with a drop kick and moves to finish it, only for Yoki to stop him so they can talk. Minutes later, the gargoyle apologizes for attacking, explaining that he became cautious after Yoki mentioned the Demon Lord's castle. Yoki responds that they only wanted to understand why a gargoyle is living there in the first place. The gargoyle then explains that bandits once stole him from a temple and brought him to the village. After he stopped those same bandits from attacking the locals, the villagers began offering prayers to him. However, only Teal continued to visit regularly and take care of the place, which is why he chooses to protect her. He assures Yoki that he has never interfered with humans or caused harm, and after hearing this, Yoki decides to leave things as they are. Afterward, Yoki gives Shike a task, using it as an excuse to get some time alone with Cecilia. As they walk together, Cecilia suddenly trips, and Yoki catches her. For a moment, he hesitates, but instead of acting, he becomes shy and steps back. Just then, they notice smoke rising from the village. Realizing something is wrong, they rush back. At the same time, Yoki spots another smoke cloud coming from the temple and sends Shike to handle it. After dealing with the bandits in the village, Yoki realizes that Shike has not returned. Moments later, Shike is thrown aside, injured, and Cecilia rushes to help him, asking what happened. Shike explains that a hero named Miller suddenly appeared and attacked the gargoyle while it was protecting Teal. Miller calls Teal foolish for protecting a gargoyle, but Yoki insists that the creature means no harm. Ignoring this, Miller cuts off the gargoyle's arm and declares that he will kill Teal as well. Cecilia warns him that acting like this could start a war, but instead of backing down, Miller becomes excited, revealing that he actually wants to start one so he can enjoy the bloodshed. Hearing this, Yoki attacks, but Miller absorbs the attack with his sword. Cecilia explains that his weapon can absorb any magic. Yoki increases his power and continues attacking, but Miller keeps absorbing everything. The gargoyle warns that Yoki will run out of magic at this rate, but Yoki continues until a powerful lightning attack begins to crack the sword. Miller starts to panic as Yoki follows up with an even stronger attack, finally shattering it. Yoki then knocks him down, calling him a fool for underestimating him. However, Miller suddenly fires a magic arrow at the gargoyle, and Teal jumps in to protect it. Using the moment as a distraction, Miller escapes. Seeing this, Yoki loses control, reveals his demonic form, and chases after him. Eventually, he catches up. Miller becomes excited at the sight of a demon, but Yoki immediately overpowers him, slamming him into the ground and sending him flying across the forest. Before Miller can recover, Yoki crushes him with another attack. Just as Yoki prepares to finish him, Miller asks if it feels good to take a life. That question makes Yoki pause. He recalls how Cecilia reacted to his true form and realizes he has gone too far. Instead of killing him, Yoki throws Miller into a river and leaves. Minutes later, he returns to Teal's home, where Cecilia is waiting. She tells him the others are resting, then notices the blood on him. Cecilia heals his injuries and welcomes him back. The next day, Teal asks them to go with them to the city so she can continue caring for the gargoyle. However, since monsters are not allowed in the city, Yoki changes the gargoyle's appearance so it can enter safely. Later, they return home, and Teal is taken in as another maid at Cecilia's mansion. However, Celia refuses to accept the gargoyle statue, complaining that it looks even uglier than Yoki. Later, Teal arrives at Yoki's place to clean the gargoyle. The gargoyle worries that she comes too often, and tells her she does not need to visit every day. When Teal asks about Yoki, he tells her that the king has summoned him to the castle. At the same time, Yoki and Cecilia are already kneeling before King Darts, who explains that he called them because of the incident involving Miller. Yoki expects punishment, but instead, the king says he wants to reward them for protecting the village and stopping Miller. Cecilia immediately refuses any reward, so the king turns to Yoki. Yoki says that what he truly wants cannot be granted. Intrigued, the king offers him great rewards, even his harem and the throne, but Yoki rejects both. When asked what he wants instead, Yoki boldly declares that he only wants Cecilia's love, only to realize too late what he has said. Fortunately, the king finds it amusing and admits that such a wish cannot be granted. Later, back at Cecilia's mansion, Yoki apologizes for his behavior. Cecilia refuses to listen, calling him foolish, while Celia agrees that he went too far. As punishment, Celia forbids Yoki from seeing Cecilia for 1 month. Cecilia objects, saying the punishment is too harsh. Celia questions her reaction, and Cecilia struggles to respond, after which Celia reduces the punishment to 2 weeks. With the decision made, Happiness drags Yoki out of the mansion. On the way, she shows him Shaik, who has been upset since returning from the village. Yoki realizes that Shaik still feels bad for being unable to stop Miller, and soon after, Happiness takes Yoki back home. There, Yoki decides to name the gargoyle Gar, but Teal ignores this and continues calling him the guardian deity. Since Teal still needs to recover, Happiness takes her back home. Later, Yoki complains about being unable to see Cecilia, and Gar suggests that he use this time to work hard and prove himself. Taking this advice, Yoki goes to the guild and asks Kramen for any available job, determined to become worthy of Cecilia. 2 weeks pass, and at the mansion, Celia notices Cecilia preparing 2 cups of tea and asks if she is excited to see Yoki again. Cecilia denies it. At the same time, Yoki returns from another night shift. When Gar asks how he still has energy, Yoki replies that it is because he will soon be able to see Cecilia again. Gar tells Yoki that he needs to show him something and reverts to his original form. Seeing this, Yoki immediately becomes concerned, as Gar is visibly falling apart. Gar explains that the wound he received from Miller has been getting worse, and that he likely only has a few days left. Because Teal depends on him, he asks Yoki to take care of her. Yoki is confused, believing that Teal should already be fine, but Gar explains that her condition is actually worsening because she has not been getting enough rest to fully recover. Hearing this, Yoki agrees to look after Teal, but also promises to find a way to heal Gar, as they have all grown attached to him. After leaving, he meets Duke, who explains that damaged gargoyles can be restored using something called magicite. Driven by this, Yoki rushes off to find it, but quickly realizes he has no idea where to begin. Just then, Cecilia finds him and informs him that Teal's condition is worsening. They quickly return to Cecilia's place, where Shaik is already trying to treat Teal. He explains that her condition will continue to deteriorate unless they find twilight grass, a special plant that only grows in areas rich in magic. With Shaik staying behind to care for Teal, Yoki and Cecilia head to the guild to search for both magicite and twilight grass. However, they learn that neither is currently available. Just then, Kramen appears with a new quest for Yoki. At first, Yoki refuses, but Kramen explains that the job involves eliminating a monster that has been attacking a magicite mine. He also reveals that twilight grass grows in that mine. Hearing this, Yoki immediately accepts the quest. 2 days later, as they travel, Yoki thanks Kramen for arranging a carriage, since the journey would have taken over a week on foot. Cecilia also thanks Sophia for coming along, and Sophia replies that, as the head maid, it is her responsibility to help with Teal as well. Soon, they arrive at the town near the mine, and Yoki suggests heading in immediately. However, Kramen stops him and says they should wait until the next day, explaining that this is not a normal quest. He tells them that the target is a rock eater that mutated after consuming too much magicite, and they must retrieve its hide without damaging it. The next morning, Yoki and Cecilia are surprised to see Sophia dressed in a maid's outfit. They question whether she can fight in it, but Sophia explains that it is specially designed for combat. She also adds that Kramen prefers her in that outfit. Soon after, they enter the mine and find the rock eater feeding on magicite. The creature notices them and immediately throws a boulder at Cecilia, but Yoki destroys it before it can reach her. As Kramen uses his shikigami to block incoming attacks, Yoki launches magic at the monster, but it barely has any effect. Kramen reminds him that they must keep the hide intact, limiting how they can attack. Adjusting his approach, Yoki uses an earth spell to restrain the monster, while Cecilia supports him with magical chains. However, the rock eater easily breaks free from both. Seeing this, Kramen decides to change tactics and uses his shikigami to send Sophia inside the monster's body. Although Yoki and Cecilia hesitate at first, Sophia reassures them that it will work. To support the plan, Yoki freezes the creature in place with an ice spell, while Cecilia reinforces the restraint with stronger chains. Taking advantage of the opening, Kramen wraps Sophia with his shikigami and sends her down the monster's throat. They continue holding it down, while pieces of the monster's body begin to break off and transform into smaller golems that attack them. Although the golems initially deflect Yoki's magic, he quickly destroys them. However, the distraction gives the rock eater a chance to break free and lunge towards Cecilia, but before it can reach her, Sophia destroys it from the inside. With the battle over, Kramen pulls Sophia out and immediately hugs her. Yoki and Cecilia pause for a moment, but Sophia reminds them that they still need to collect the twilight grass. After gathering it, they prepare to leave the mine. Kramen suggests returning the next day, but Yoki insists on leaving immediately, prompting Cecilia to ask him to wait. However, a few hours later, Yoki quietly attempts to leave on his own, only to find Cecilia already waiting for him. She hands him the remaining twilight grass, revealing that she knew he would try to leave early. After thanking her, Yoki sets off at once. By the time he returns, Gar appears lifeless, as if he has already passed. Refusing to accept this, Yoki shakes him repeatedly until Gar finally responds. Without hesitation, Yoki forces the magicite into him and reminds him that Teal is still depending on him. That reminder, combined with the magicite's effect, restores Gar's strength and completely heals him. Before Yoki can say anything more, Gar suddenly flies off. Moments later, Yoki arrives at Teal's room, where he learns that Shaik has already saved her using the twilight grass. When Teal sees Gar, she reacts with relief and excitement. Gar thanks Shaik for saving both him and Teal, which makes Shaik emotional. Meanwhile, Yoki begins to worry about how he will make it back to Cecilia in time. The next morning, during the return journey, Kramen notices that Yoki looks unusually tired and asks about it. Cecilia explains that he pushed himself too hard during the quest, and for the entire journey home, Yoki rests with his head in her lap. A few days later, Yuki grows increasingly frustrated because Cecilia is so busy that she no longer has time to let him relax on her melons and enjoy his usual naps. Looking for something to do, he runs into Kramen and learns that his friend is searching for a gift for Sophia. Eager to help, Yuki immediately starts offering suggestions, but Kramen rejects every one of them, insisting that the only thing he really wants is to see Sophia wearing her maid outfit again. While wandering through town afterward, Yuki suddenly spots a ridiculous superhero costume known as the Backwater Power Rangers suit. Without a second thought, he spends nearly all of his savings on it, convinced that it is the greatest purchase of his life. The moment he puts it on, however, Yuki transforms from a lonely idiot into the most embarrassing sight in the entire city. To make matters worse, Dragging Kramen along with him, he marches straight to the Adventurers Guild and demands every available quest. Once the receptionist gathers the available requests, Yuki boldly accepts every single quest before introducing himself as the magic swordsman of Black Lightning. Then, he single-handedly defeats a dragon and clears one difficult mission after another, quickly earning a reputation throughout the city. Although many people admire his strength, they are equally bewildered by his dramatic speeches and painfully cringeworthy finishing moves. Meanwhile, a group of disgruntled thieves led by a green-haired adventurer named Envy launches a raid on a warehouse. After defeating the guards, they storm inside and threaten the owner, demanding that he hand over everything if he wants to make it home safely that night. The terrified merchant immediately surrenders, but before the thieves can celebrate, Yuki arrives on the scene. Striking a dramatic pose, he orders them to give up at once. His ridiculous costume is so awful that several of the criminals nearly feel sick just looking at it, but Envy quickly orders everyone to attack. Yuki defeats the entire group with ease. And when Envy attempts to turn the battle around using a magical spellbook, Yuki effortlessly blocks the attack and knocks him out as well. Grateful for being rescued, the warehouse owner thanks Yuki and explains that the goods he is protecting are Valentine's chocolates that need to be delivered throughout the city. Just then, a squad of knights led by Raven and Shike arrives at the warehouse. It takes them only a few seconds to identify Yuki, because nobody else in the kingdom would willingly wear something so unbelievably hideous. Not long afterward, Shike catches up with Yuki and bluntly tells him to stop acting like he has lost his mind. When Yuki proudly defends his fashion choices, Shike orders him to take a good look at himself. He does, and finally realizes how ridiculous he looks. For days, he has been running around the city dressed like a discount superhero, while somehow believing he looks cool. Later, Kramen collects the rewards for the completed quests and explains the story behind Envy and his companions. They were once ordinary adventurers, but after a series of failures and disappointments, they became bitter criminals obsessed with ruining Valentine's Day for everyone else. That evening, preparations for the holiday are underway at Cecilia's mansion. Sophia teaches the girls how to make chocolates. Misaki notices that Cecilia is making far more chocolates than anyone else and asks why she needs so many. Cecilia innocently explains that she plans to give chocolates to the orphanage children. The next morning, Yuki wakes up filled with anticipation, convinced that Cecilia will surely give him chocolates. Unfortunately, his hopes are immediately crushed when Happiness appears first and delivers chocolates to Gar. At the guild, Kramen proudly shows off the luxurious chocolates Sophia made for him, while gleefully reminding Yuki that he will probably receive nothing. To make matters worse, Seek cheerfully shows off the chocolates he received, leaving Yuki even more depressed. Returning to town, he watches countless girls lining up to present chocolates to Yuga, making him feel even more miserable. Soon afterward, Makana arrives carrying a box of handmade chocolates. Embarrassed by her cooking skills, she admits that she is nervous because they might taste terrible. At that moment, Yuga appears and happily declares that hers are the first chocolates he wants to try. Makana repeatedly warns him that they might be awful, but despite their questionable appearance, Yuga confidently takes a bite. To her surprise, he smiles and insists that they actually taste delicious. After spending the day wandering around town, Yuki realizes he seems to be the only lonely person left in the entire city. Desperate for one final chance, he heads to Cecilia's mansion, only to learn that she has already left. Their sweet moment is abruptly interrupted by terrified screams echoing throughout the city. Everyone looks up to see a gigantic golem rampaging through the streets while vacuuming up every box of Valentine's chocolates it can find. It turns out Envy is fully committed to destroying Valentine's Day. When Yuga attempts to stop the monster, Envy orders the golem to attack, forcing Yuga and Makana to narrowly avoid being crushed. Realizing the situation is getting out of control, Yuki confronts Envy and demands that she stop ruining the holiday. He argues that being unlucky in love is hardly a valid excuse for causing chaos. Envy immediately fires back, asking why Yuki is not supporting her when his romantic situation is arguably even worse. Knowing words will not solve anything, Yuki takes down her followers and attacks. Envy once again relies on her spellbook and nearly gains the upper hand during their battle. However, Yuki manages to withstand withstand the attacks and declares that he still believes the girl he loves will give him chocolates someday. Those words only enrage Envy further. In response, she blasts Yuki away and orders the golem to absorb every remaining chocolate in the city, including Cecilia's. Seeing Cecilia's chocolates disappear is the final straw. Determined not to let all of everyone's efforts go to waste, Yuki unleashes his full power and overwhelms the gigantic golem with a barrage of lightning attack. The monster eventually melts apart, releasing every stolen box of chocolates back into the city. During the collapse, Envy falls from the rooftop, but Yuga rushes forward and catches her, only to discover that she is actually a girl. Through tears, she confesses that she hates Valentine's Day because nobody has ever accepted the chocolates she makes. When Yuga gently tells her that he would gladly accept them, all of her bitterness instantly crumbles away, and she bursts into tears. Meanwhile, Yuki can only stand awkwardly on the sidelines as everyone ignores him, despite the fact that he is the one who just saved the entire city. Fortunately, Cecilia has not forgotten him. Later, Cecilia finally gives Yuki a special Valentine's box as thanks for all of his hard work, and he soon realizes that she had been saving her most meaningful gift for last.
And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and feel free to write whatever you want in the comments section. Thank you for watching.